If you're watching this, then I assume you're interested in learning Japanese. That or you're a weeb. Either's fine, honestly. A lot of people have made videos giving their advice on how to learn Japanese, and to be frank, I don't agree with most of them, so I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring and give y'all some tips on how I went from not knowing a lick of Japanese to fully conversational in just 3 years. To introduce myself, hey y'all, my name is Yaya, and this is my YouTube channel. I have spent years learning Japanese, and I would like to think that I learned a thing or two. For context, here's a video of me submitting my final project for my Intro to Japanese class.
私もおかげさまで、そういえば、日本の文化について話しましょうか。Ha ha! That's good.
Okage-sama day. That's that southern coming through, y'all. But now I sound like this. 私もおかげさまで、そういえば、日本の文化について話しましょうか。Y'all see the improvement, right? Like I'm saying all that to say, I think I learned a few things over my 3 years of Japanese language learning. And I want to share the most important ones with you in this video today. Language learning is all about pattern recognition. Your brain takes in the sounds from the world around you, and after some time, it starts associating certain meanings with those certain sounds. It's how we learned our mother languages as babies, and generally, that's how it works even as adults. As kids, though, we never consciously thought of verb conjugation or grammar patterns. We just picked up enough to replicate. And then after a while, and with thousands of hours of passive input, we were able to form our own original thoughts. That's not to say that you can learn a language entirely through just listening, though. Especially for Japanese, I do recommend you get practice reading and understanding the two main alphabets, being hiragana and katakana. Hiragana is basically 4 words that originated in the Japanese language, while katakana is more, you can add a little bit of flavor to originally Japanese words, but it's also for words that don't come from the Japanese language, like fried potato. Don't spend too much time focusing on grammar patterns and memorizing the entirety of Genki 1. Most of everything that you're going to learn is going to come from interacting in your target language. And that leads me to my first tip. Immersion is one of, if not the most important things when it comes to learning any language. You want your brain to subconsciously get familiar with how a language sounds and how it works, even before you know what everything means. You want to prime your brain for what it's getting into. Now, I started learning Japanese through a traditional language class in university, but honestly, and this is not a dig at my teachers, they were awesome, they were wonderful, but that period of time was the slowest my Japanese had progressed. It was only after I started immersing myself in Japanese is when I actually saw tangible results. My listening comprehension improved in class. I was able to think in Japanese instead of translating everything to English and then translating back to Japanese. And my brain to mouth filter sped up significantly. And that allowed me to cut down on all the dead space that I had in conversations while I thought of a response. Honestly, when I think about it, all of those things happened in the last year and a half, which leads me to think if I would have started this immersion stuff sooner, how far would I be in my Japanese language? Maybe I would have been fluent by now. I don't know. But of course, immersion comes with a lot of... This tip goes hand in hand with immersion. Some people just want to learn basic phrases like Konnichiwa, nani-nani-san, o genki desu ka, only to get Nihongo josei by a native speaker. If you really wanted to learn Japanese, then I recommend increasing your input tenfold. I'm talking listening to something in Japanese for multiple hours every single day. Yes, this is time consuming. However, it is necessary. So instead of logging hundreds of hours playing Stardew Valley or watching Markiplier's playthrough of Repo for the 12th time, take a little bit of time to dedicate to language learning. I tend to do this through passive input. This is where you basically take in your target language passively while you're doing some other task. For example, when I'm meal prepping something, I usually just put on some Japanese music in the background. That way, I can subconsciously rack up those input hours without having my sole focus entirely on learning Japanese, you know what I'm saying? Without even realizing it, I was building up that mental catalog of vocabulary and grammar structures that I could reference whenever I needed to. And that segues nicely into my last tip. Oh no, cut off this time? Okay, great. So I'm just gonna continue. Steal. I'm not even kidding. Take what you hear and say it. Try and mimic the intonation and the flow of the speaker. And what happens is that your brain feels the physical movement of the word or phrase that is trying to say, which will build a stronger connection that you can reference when you want to use that same word or phrase in conversations of your own. You see what I'm saying? People refer to this as having a language parent, which is basically having someone that you model your speech off of. Me personally, I don't have one specific language parent. I take a lot of inspiration from all of my different inputs, like my Japanese professors, my tutor, anime, Japanese music artists, like everybody, and then I combine it all to make my own unique voice. Repetition is the step that really propelled my language learning. Whenever I encounter a word that I don't know in a conversation, I usually repeat it back to my conversation partner, but phrase is more of a question. And then that prompts them to realize that I didn't really understand what they said and context isn't really helping, so they try to explain it as best they can in Japanese. Then after that, I try and repeat it back to myself a couple of times, once again matching the intonation until that connection is solidified in my brain, both the word and its meaning. I do this a lot in conversation practice with my tutor. Whenever I have a word that I don't understand, I repeat it back, and then I try and work it into my response somehow to see if I used it correctly. It's a constant cycle of taking in new information and then testing it out to really become comfortable with it. And yes, I know it is a little embarrassing to admit that you don't know something, but the faster you become comfortable with being uncomfortable, the faster you will progress in your target language. Well, those are just a few of my most important tips when it comes to learning a new language. Remember, these are just things that have helped me specifically on my language journey. My focus was more on speaking and listening comprehension, if you couldn't tell from the rest of the video. But if your focus is more on reading and writing, then I still think that these tips would be beneficial. It's just you might need a little bit extra. I'm going to put some resources down in the description that helped me out through my journey, and hopefully it can help y'all too. I do want to make some more in-depth videos detailing specific parts of my language journey. So if y'all are interested in some of those, then stick around for it, ではここで終わりましょう。日本語の勉強する間に楽しみにしていてください。皆さん頑張ってください。次の動画でまた会いましょう。バイバイ。